Okay, so we are getting started with the first four questions that are provided. The very first question is right here in front of you. So this example wants you to calculate the carrying value of Baringo Company's equity. They have told you some of the figures and ratios which relate to this company. You have the operating profit given, the profit for the period is given, interest rate is given to you that the company, whatever long-term debt they have, they pay a 4% interest on this debt. The capital gearing ratio based on the carrying values of debt to equity is 45%, and the interest coverage ratio of the company is 12 times. You have further been told that Baringo currently they do not have any short-term borrowings or short-term liabilities. So you have to find out what is the carrying value of their equity. Take 2 minutes, solve, and let me know your answers. Let me know once you guys are done. You can put your answers in the chat box. A little bit of a hint, whatever formula you people have learned as part of the ratio analysis, which is not that you are learning for the very first time in the PM paper. You people have learned it in other papers also, financial reporting, audit, financial management. In all of these papers, we use these ratios to analyze the performance of a company. So one thing will lead you to another. Information is not given directly to you, but indirectly you have to use this information to get to your answers. I have received one answer already from Sarthak. That's great. Waiting for a few more seconds, then we are going to discuss this together. Any more answers? Okay, one more I have received. All right. So let's also discuss this together. Those of you who have been able to come up with their answers, good. Those of you who were not able to, no problem. Let's discuss this together. So we basically, the requirement wants me to find out the carrying value of the equity. So I have to find out what is the worth of the equity as per, you can say, my books, right? So what is the workings or what are the steps that I should do over here? Let me start with something so that I get to know about what could potentially lead me to my value of the equity. So my starting point here will be my interest cover ratio, which is given to me as 12 times. Now 12 times is my interest cover ratio, and we have learned that what is the formula of interest cover? Interest cover is going to be PBIT, that is your operating profit, divided by the interest that you are paying. This is what you have learned as part of the interest coverage formula. So we know that 12 times 12 is equal to PBIT, or your operating profit, is something that's directly given to you in the question as $6 million. And that means the denominator, if you want to find out the interest, how much is interest going to be? Interest is going to be 6 divided by 12. This will tell you that how much interest is the company paying. The company is paying an interest worth 0.4 million, $0.5 million. This is the amount of interest that the company is paying on every annual basis. Now, if this is the amount of interest, and I know that on my long-term borrowings, currently I don't have any short-term borrowings. So all of the interest which I am paying, this entirely relates to my long-term borrowings. So that means whatever is the rate, that means whatever is my borrowing, let's suppose if X is my borrowing, then 4% of X is equal to 0.5. So can you people, using this thing, let me know how much would be the value of my long-term debt? How much long-term debt do I have with me?
Ma'am, 12.5.
Simply take 0.5 and divide it by 4%. So that's going to give you 12.5. So that means your value of debt is 12.5. Now I know one thing, my value of debt I have calculated. Now you people tell me what further steps I should do to move towards the value of the equity?
55% होगी मैम
Yes,
उसकी.
it's told to us that debt in comparison to equity is 45%. So if I put this number into the formula 12.5, this is the value of my debt, divided by equity is what I want to find out. So this is going to be equal to 45%. Now, if you want to find out the value of equity, you can simply rearrange. Equity will be equal to 12.5 divided by 45%. So if you do this working, you're going to get to $27.8 million as your final answer. Understood, everybody? Any doubts in any of the steps here? Are you all with me so far? Yes, others also? Okay, so now let me take you people towards the second question that's related to the section A. So you have to here calculate the learning rate. Duluti company manufactures guitars and has recently designed a new guitar called the Keris. The guitars are produced in batches, and the first batch of guitars took 1500 hours to manufacture. The second batch of Keris guitars took 1350 hours to manufacture. So here you people have to calculate the learning rate. Again, take 2 minutes, think, calculate, and let me know your answers. All right, I'm starting to receive answers. Within 30 seconds, we will then discuss it together. This is fairly simple. Okay, let's discuss this together. I have received some of the answers also. How do we solve this? Now we know that here the production is doubling. First, I made one batch. Then when I complete two batches, then my production has doubled. One's double is two. So what I will do is the very first batch, it's been told to me that it took me 1500 hours to manufacture. So if I'm calculating the total time over here, first batch took 1500 hours in total. If I talk about preparing the total time for two batches, how much did it total took me to produce these two batches? So it will be 1500 plus 1350. How much will that give you? That will give you 2850. Now, what do we get to know? What's the formula that we've learned about the learning rate? If we want to get to know what is the learning rate, we know that every time my output is going to double, my average time taken per batch is going to fall down. So what I have to do is I basically have to find out what is the average time taken for both of these batches. Now here the average will also remain the same. 1500 divided by 1 will remain 1500. Now how do you calculate the average time over here? 2850 divided by 2. So how much will you get? You're going to get 1425. It's basically the half of 2850, so that will come to 1425. Now you can see that when your production doubled, your time taken has fallen down per batch. So how much did your time fall down? You simply take the new figure of 1425, divide that by 1500, and you convert it to a percentage. So that is going to give you 95% as the learning rate for this particular guitars that they are manufacturing. Vignesh, did you understand why 95% is going to be the answer? Okay. Are you all with me? Should we head to the third question now? Yes, so far so good, everybody. Should we head to the third one? Okay, let's have a look at the third question. So you have to select which of the following statements relating to full cost plus pricing are true. So before you even read through the statements, what you should do is have a quick run through of the concept in your mind. What exactly is the full cost plus pricing method? We take the full cost. So full cost will include variable cost plus the fixed cost. This is the total cost for me. And to this, I add some sort of my profit margin. And when I add both of them together, I calculate my selling price. This is what we have studied as the concept. Now, the very first statement tells you this pricing method allows a business to set a low initial price to gain the market share. Second statement says that it is most suitable for the retail organizations. And the third statement says that this pricing method will allow a business to maximize the profits from the sale of a product. So what do you people think? Out of these three statements that have been mentioned in front of you, which of them do you think are correct? Give the statements a read, think, and let me know as per you which of the following statements will you consider to be correct. Okay, I am receiving answers. Most of you say that it is going to be option A, which will be our answer, and you people are absolutely right in saying that. I have received one answer which says option B. So let's do one thing. Let's discuss the statements together one by one. The very first statement tells you that this method will allow you to set a low price initially. Guys, when your focus is to recover the total of your cost within the initial time frame only, will you be able to set a low selling price if you're including all of your costs plus a profit margin? Will you be able to come up with a price that is low initially? Do you think that is what we do as part of the full cost plus strategy, or do we do this as part of another strategy? Come on, tell me, is this something that you do as part of this policy, the full cost plus pricing? No. Which is the method where you do this? Initially, you set a low price so that you're able to gain a lot of market share. The other day, we were discussing examples also. Yes, absolutely right, Arin. That's the penetration policy. Very good. So, this statement is not applicable for me. This does not have to be one of my answers. Then the second one says that it is suitable for the retail organizations. What do we mean by retail organizations? These are companies, these are businesses who are selling directly to the customers. Now you can be doing business in multiple ways. Either you sell in bulk to, maybe let's suppose you're a wholesaler, and then you sell your goods to somebody who directly sells to the customers. Or you can have another business model where you are directly selling to your customers. So you people would have heard these terminologies, B2B. We sell B2B. That means I'm a business and I sell to another business. And then you have this category called B2C, where business is selling the goods to the customers directly. So here we are saying retail organizations will be those organizations who are actually B2B or B2C, guys? Who are retail organizations?
B2C, ma'am.
Yes, they are B2C. They directly sell to the customers, the consumers. So do you think that this will be suitable for retail companies where they are meeting all of their costs and they are able to make a little bit of a profit on that? Yes, we can say that it will be suitable for them. Okay. Now let's talk about the third one. The third statement says that this method will help the business, will allow the business to maximize the profits. Is there any guarantee that if I use this method, I'll be able to maximize my profits? Is there any guarantee? No, right? We have studied another method. Which method do we use to find out the profit maximizing price? Which model or which method, which strategy is it?
Limiting factor.
No. I'm talking about the pricing only. Here, this is the pricing unit. So what method can I follow to price my product so that I can maximize my profits?
Target costing.
No. Anybody else?
MR is equals to MC.
Yes, the economist approach, economist model will help me maximize my profits. That's the MCMR approach. So this is also something which is not applicable to me. So my answer has to be only that second statement is correct. So it is 2 only. Even if, guys, in your exam, you are not really sure whether the second statement is true or not, but you are confidently able to eliminate the other 2 options. So you can see that clearly in the options, you do not have a choice given that neither of them are correct. That means if you're really sure that 1 and 3 are incorrect, that means the second statement has to be correct. So elimination also can help you people. I'm not saying that you should only rely on elimination, but for the questions where you people feel stuck, where you think that you're not able to figure out, you're not very sure about your answer, then in those questions, use these techniques like elimination. Smart work over hard work will always be better for you guys. All good till here? Should we head to the last question related to section A?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now moving towards the very last question. This is example 4. So you people have to identify by clicking on the relevant boxes in the table below whether the following statements regarding the stages of the big data pyramid are true or false. So the big data pyramid can show the stages of the transformation of initial unstructured data into information that can be used for reliable decision making and accurate forecasting. So this is something which we have studied as part of the very first chapter of our PM syllabus, and this is an area which is very commonly tested. Students often take this area very lightly because you people think that this is completely theoretical. So what possibly could ACCA ask us over here? We will magically be able to solve any questions that come based upon this. But this is where, if you can see here, there are 3 statements given to us. So even if I'm answering 2 of them correctly and 1 is incorrect, then I land up with absolutely nothing. So I have to ensure that every statement that I answer, it it has to be correct. So take 2 minutes, read through the statements, think of your answers and let me know all three at once, which of them will be true, which of them will be false. All right, I'm starting to receive answers. What do the others think? Do we have any more answers from the other students? Come on, you can be wrong, but at least give it a shot. Try. Okay. All right, so let's discuss this together. Now, before I break down statement by statement for you, let's just first quickly revise the concept. So, the big data analytics that we've studied as part of chapter number 1, what is the order in which we go about? So, first of all, whatever systems are there in the company, they collect the data. Using that data, what do we convert this into? We convert that data into first of all, it's going to be information. So data is processed. It's raw. Data is basically raw facts and figures. Raw facts, figures. And then it's converted into information. What exactly is information? Information is where I am using this particular data which I have collected. I am arranging it in a proper manner and I try to find out the different relationships, the trends and the patterns. So when it comes to information, I am looking for patterns so that I can find out how are the different things related to each other. Then once I have information, I further process it. What does it become after I have processed information? Can you guys tell me which stage comes next? First, data is converted into information. Then what does information become when you further process it? Yes, information becomes knowledge. Information becomes knowledge. And the last stage after knowledge is also processed, then we call it as wisdom. So we've discussed that data is basically your raw facts and figures. Information is when you are trying to look for the patterns, the relationships, the trends. And what is knowledge? Knowledge is when I am trying to understand how I can apply those links. So the application of it is basically apply the patterns, apply the links that I have studied as part of information. And what is wisdom? Wisdom is when I am actually taking decisions, making decisions on the basis of the insights, on the basis of things that I got to know with my knowledge. And I take the right decisions which help me make profits, which help me create value for my shareholders. So using knowledge to take decisions. That is wisdom. So the focus here is your ability to take the decisions. This is the whole hierarchy. This is the whole sequence. Now we can break down these statements one by one very easily now that we have revised our concepts. So the very first, if basically I give you people an example to follow through all the different stages, think of maybe a customer purchase list. So who are the different customers who are buying from us? So this is basically raw data. Now if I want to get some more insight from it, I will process this raw data to convert it into information. So how can I convert it into information? I will probably using the data I found out that if let's suppose I have a business wherein I'm selling energy drinks. So maybe with the data that I collected, I processed it further and I found out that most of my customers are young customers. Mostly young customers are going to buy the energy drinks. Now, how can I convert this information into knowledge? Knowledge will be when I know that because majority of my customers are young customers, then what should I say? The knowledge that I gain with this is the pattern that I understand is that if I want to be successful, whatever, if let's suppose I'm an energy drink company, my product should be marketed more towards the young customers. So I should target more of the young people for my ads. The young audiences should be targeted. So whenever I'm creating my marketing campaigns, whenever I'm creating my advertisements, I'm specially ensuring that I'm targeting the attention, I'm grasping the attention of the younger audiences. And what would be wisdom? Wisdom would be when I actually launch a campaign where I am focusing on the youth. So you people will usually see Mountain Dew, Thumbs Up, Red Bull, all of these companies, they follow this strategy because they know that the youth is basically their main consumers. All of the marketing campaigns, the materials that they release, they are based on something which the youth is going to be attracted towards. So what you do is, because of launching a youth focused campaign, your sales will increase, your profits will increase. So that is how you have created value for your shareholders, value for the company. Now let's get to the statements one by one. The very first statement tells you wisdom is when value is added by the use of insight. So do you agree with the first statement now? Everybody tell me your answers for the first statement in the chat box. What do you think about the very first statement, guys? Should it be true? Should it be false? Guys, I'm waiting for your answers. Let's be participative. These webinars are for you. These sessions are for you. Yes, this makes this statement true. This is exactly what I have learned as the definition of wisdom. I try to take decisions. I try, with the help of those decisions, I try to add value for the company. So this is exactly what I am doing with my wisdom. Then the second statement tells you information stage is where you find out how the connections and the links can be applied. What do you people think? Is the second statement true or false? The second statement is false. Can I change one thing so that this information, so that this statement will become correct? What one thing or what word should I replace over here so that this line will become correct? What should I change? You people are right that this is false because that is not what I do in information stage. But what should I replace such that this statement will become true? Guys, are you people able to hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
So why is nobody responding? What should I change here?
From how to we can change it to the. Like,
This exact statement is a definition of another stage. Can we simply not change the name of the stage?
yes, ma'am.
What should we do? Information should be replaced with
Knowledge.
stage. Application of the scenarios, of the connections, of the links is done in the knowledge stage and not in the information stage. That is why I will be marking this statement as false. If rather than using information here, this line used knowledge, then I would have marked this statement true. Then moving towards the very last statement, knowledge stage is about highlighting the existence of the relationships. What do you think? Here, are we only concerned in the knowledge stage? Do we only talk about whether relationships exist or not? Or do we do something more in the knowledge stage? What do you think about this statement? Should we mark this as true or false?
False.
Reason?
We also apply the
Yes, we
knowledge.
apply in the knowledge stage. And where do we find that whether patterns and relationships exist or not? In which stage do we do that?
Information.
We do that in the information stage. So this statement is also false. If this word was replaced by information, then I will mark this statement as correct. Are you all with me on this? Is this clear and understood by everybody? Okay. Now we move forward to one case study that we are given with related to the section B of our paper. So this case study comes from the syllabus area B of our PM syllabus, that is the specialist cost management accounting techniques. So we are given with this case study and then we have to answer questions which are based on this case study. So Printer Universe Company, PU Company, is launching a new printer called Zone. It has invested $300,000 for the development and launch of Zone. The expected demand is 500 units in the current year at a selling price of $500 per unit. So I have highlighted my demand. I have highlighted my selling price. Maybe I need it later. The target profit is the higher of 25% markup and 20% investment per unit. The following production information relates to the Zone printer. So the resources which I am using, how much of those resources I am using, and the cost of those materials. So glass, metal, plastic, machining and skilled labor, all of this is required for preparing a printer. These are the quantities in which I require the resources and these are the prices per unit of these resources that I have to pay. Some note is also given with respect to plastic. The amount of plastic required for each zone is before allowing for a normal loss of 20% on the plastic used. That means whatever plastic I am using in the production, do I get the whole benefit in the output? Whatever plastic I am putting in the manufacturing, I do not get the whole output. Some of it I end up losing. So if let's suppose guys, I put in 1 kg of plastic, how much of plastic will actually remain in my final product? 0.8 kgs, absolutely, because 20% of 1 kg, that is 0.2 kg, will go under the normal losses. Absolutely right. Then let's talk about another information that's given to us, that's about the Z1 cartridge. So PU Company has also developed a new printer cartridge called the Z1, which will be compatible with the Zone printer. PU Company wishes to make a profit margin of 25%. So this is a margin of 25% that they want to make on the Z1, which has a selling price of $110. So selling price is going to be $110 per cartridge. PU Company is known for the durability of its printer cartridges and wants to ensure that Z1 is also long lasting. So they want to continue to live up to their reputation about the durability. That means the cartridges are very long lasting, and they want to continue this thing to happen. They want to ensure that the new cartridge that they have developed, that is also long lasting. The following product information relates to the Z1. So the production resources which are used, amount that you have to use, and the cost that you have to pay per unit. Something is also given with respect to the after sales services. So following the feedback from customers, PU company is planning to start a dedicated department to provide after sales service to the customers. It plans to use target costing for setting up of this department. Now the very first question is asking me which of the following types of control is target costing an example of. So take 2 minutes, think of your answers and let me know what we should mark over here. Target costing is an example of which of the following? Positive feedback, negative feedback, double loop feedback, or feed forward. Think carefully and then let me know your answers. Okay, I'm receiving your answers, and most of you say that it will be option D. You people are absolutely right when you say that, but can you also let me know what's the reason why D will be our answer and why not A, why not B, why not C? Anyone who would like to give their answer? The reason behind the same? Anyone who wants to answer? The reason.
Ma'am, because in target costing, we are predicting the price of the product, and the feed forward also tells us, like, in future, what are the changes that can happen.
Right. So basically, if we go back to the concepts of feedback and feed forward, if I break it down to you people in very, very simple terms, when I'm talking about feedback, feedback is when something is already done and then I'm reflecting on the results of it, the outcome of it. So for example, when you people appear for your final exam on the March attempt, I think you people will have your exam probably on the 3rd of March. Am I right? Or is it the 4th of March? 4th?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when you appear for your exam on the 4th of March and when you ultimately receive your results in the month of April, the day when you receive the results, then it will be your feedback. Why? Because you cannot go back to your exam day and change the answers that you wrote. So that is feedback when the performance is done and then you're evaluating how did things go. But feed forward is the exact opposite of it. So feed forward, the best example would be you people appearing for the mock exams. So mock exams are not your final exam, but with the help of mocks, you will be able to find out what are the possible things which can go wrong so that you can correct them today itself such that those mistakes do not happen in your final exam. So another very, I would say, a real life example would be think about a day when you see that it's going to be probably you see a huge lot of clouds that are being there in the sky, and now what you do is before you leave from your house you are keeping an umbrella with you, so you are preparing for anything bad which can happen later. So that will be the example of feed forward. And let's suppose even though you knew that maybe it's going to rain, you were not sure, it could rain, it could not rain also, so you decided let's go, we'll see whatever happens. So now you are already out of your house and it starts to rain. Now what you do is you saw that you made a poor decision today, you should have carried your umbrella. Now what's the next best solution? You go to a shop and you buy an umbrella. So feedback is when the bad thing has already happened and then you are reflecting on it, you're trying to ensure that it does not happen in the future. Feed forward is you're not waiting for a bad thing to happen, you're not waiting for a problem to occur. Right in the initial stage itself, you're taking the corrective actions. If let's suppose you get a slight hint that you're not going on the right track, you start making changes choices today itself so that you do not have to regret later. So this is the main core concept behind feedback and feed forward. Now, what exactly are we doing with target costing? With target costing, I look up for a price which my market would be willing to accept. So before I do my own production, then I calculate my cost, then I add a profit margin to it, and then I sell it in the market. Before I do that, I am preparing a target for myself. I have not yet started my production. I am preparing a target that this is what I should be able to achieve. So before anything goes wrong, I am doing target costing. That is why my answer has to be feed forward control. So you people were all right that it has to be option D. Now, I hope that the reason is also understood by everybody. Are we good to proceed to the second question now? Okay. So here is question number 2 in front of you. What is the target cost per zone printer in the current year? So for the zone printer, I am supposed to calculate the target cost. So information about zone printer was given to me over here. I have to calculate the target cost of it. So take 2 minutes, do your workings and let me know your answers. What formula do you guys use to calculate your target cost? As per target costing, what exactly do we do to get to know what is our target cost? 30 more seconds, then we discuss this together, guys.
I think 275 again.
Okay, we'll discuss it together. Others, any answers? All right, so let's try and solve this one together. I know that the steps that I have studied with target costing, what exactly do I have to do? My first step is to find out the selling price which will be acceptable by the market. From that, the second step I do is I deduct a desirable profit margin which I want to obtain. So desirable profit I deduct from the selling price and that helps me find out my target cost. My target cost, right? So same working I will do over here also. Selling price is given to me $500 is what the market will be willing to accept. Now with respect to my target profit is actually the higher of two numbers. So I will do the calculations for both of them and then I will find out whichever is a higher profit, I will choose that particular profit. So the very first option that I have is putting a 25% markup. Now guys, we have two concepts. One is markup, one is margin. What is markup calculated upon? Of which item do you calculate markup on? It's on the cost. And what about margin? Margin is always calculated on the Selling price, absolutely. So here, because it says markup, I will be using my cost or selling price. I will be using my cost, isn't it? So 25% of the cost. So how will I find it out over here? I know that my selling price is nothing but the total of my cost plus the profit. This is what the equation I have studied. So my selling price should be equal to cost. And what should I replace profit with? I can say profit is 25% of my cost. So plus 25% of my cost. Now I am given with 500, that is the selling price, will be equal to 125% of the cost. Now can you people let me know how much will cost come out to? How much will the cost be? Take 500, divide that by 125%.
400.
Yeah, 500 divided by 125% is 400. So you got the value of cost is equal to 400, and you have the equation that 25% of your cost is profit. That means my profit in this case will be 25% of $400. That will give me $100 as my profit. This is option number 1. Are you all with me till workings that I have done till here? Option 1 is understood? Okay, now let's talk about the choice 2. What is choice 2 that I have? I will be recovering 20% of my investment per unit. So something was also mentioned about my investment. It was telling me that my investment has been $300,000. So $300,000 on this number, I want to have a return of 20%. So if I use the return on capital employed method, return on investment method, what exactly do I have to do is I take my target profit. So my target profit is 300,000 multiplied by 20%, and I will divide this with my selling price of 500. Can you let me know how much does your profit per unit look like right now if you do this particular working? You get 120 as your profit. So option 1 was to have a profit of 100. Option 2 is to get a profit of 120. So which option would you people like to choose? It's given in the question. We will be picking the higher of both of these. So which option should I go for, 100 or 120? I should be picking option 2, that is 120. So now I have my selling price, that is 500. I have my profit margin which I want to earn is 120. So can you tell me what should be my target cost now? Now only the last part of the working has to be done. I know my selling price, I know my profit. The difference between both of these numbers has to be my target cost. Yes, absolutely. My target cost is going to come out to 500 minus 120, that is $380. So 380, this is what my target cost looks like. Any doubts in any of the steps, guys? Are you all with me till here? Okay. Now let's head towards the third question. So third question wants me to find out what is the maximum rate per gram of ink which I would be willing to pay or I can pay to avoid a cost gap for the Z1 cartridge. So some information was given to me about this cartridge also. I have to find out that as a company, what is the maximum rate per gram of ink I will be willing to pay so that I do not have to bear any cost gap. So let's do one thing. Let's go back to the information that's given to us about Z1. So with respect to Z1, there are different things which I will be requiring, how much of it I require, and the cost per unit is given to me. Now I have to find out what is the maximum that I will be willing to pay such that I can avoid a cost gap. So take 2 minutes, try and solve this on your own once, then we will discuss this together. Any answers yet? Are you guys still solving? Do you want me to wait or shall we discuss this together now? Okay, I have received one answer from Gurman. Thirty more seconds, then we discuss it together, guys. Okay, let's discuss together now. So basically, I have to find out what is the maximum I will be willing to pay so that there's no cost gap. Willing to pay for what? For a gram of ink. Now, first of all, I'll have to see, let's check whether any cost gap exists in the first place or not. So what will I do to check whether there's a cost gap? I'll have to see what is my target cost. And then I'll have to compare my target cost with my actual cost. So they are telling me my selling price is going to be 110, and over that I want to have a margin of 25%. So with this information, guys, we can very easily calculate the target cost. How do I calculate my selling price? Selling price is cost plus the profit. Now here I have a margin of 25%. So that means 25% of selling price will be equal to my profit. So that means what information can I use? 110 over here will be equal to my cost plus 25% of 110. So when you solve this equation, you're going to get if I calculate 25% of 110, I am getting it as 27.5. So when I subtract 27.5 from 110, I will be able to calculate my target cost. So my target cost comes out to $82.5. Are you all with me till here where we have calculated the target cost? Any doubts till this step? Okay, so if you're all with me till here, let's do one thing. To find out whether there's a cost gap, what do I have to compare my target cost with? Just now we were talking about it. To find out whether any gap exists here, what I have to compare this number with? My actual cost, which I am thinking that it will cost me. So information about my actual cost is also given to me. One casing is going to be needed, which will cost $10. So 10 plus one print head, which will cost me $16. Plus, I have to use 0.5 grams of ink, which costs me $64 per gram. So I want only half of it. So I will multiply it with 0.5. Plus, I need to use 1.5 machine hours, and every hour I'm paying $20. So $20 multiplied by 1.5 hours that I want to utilize. Can you people calculate and let me know how much is our actual cost looking like? Just add all of these numbers together. Okay, so you people are telling me that it will total up to 88. Now this is what my actual looks like, and I want to produce it at 82.5. So is there any gap which exists right now? What do we say? Is there a gap which exists over here? Yes, a gap exists, and that is worth the difference between both of these numbers. I should be able to produce it for 82.5, but I am overspending. How much do I overspend? It's the difference between 88 and 82.5 that gives me $5.5 of a cost gap, which is there in this scenario. So I'm facing a cost gap right now. The cost gap is worth $5.5. This is what I have calculated. Now, are you people with me till here? Target cost and our actual cost and the comparison between both of these numbers? All clear till here? Okay, now let's talk about what my question wants me to answer here. My question wants me to find out what is the maximum rate per gram of ink that I will be willing to pay so that there is no cost gap. Now, according to me, what is my target? My target is to produce everything at a total of 82.5. Everything that I'm including in my cartridge, it should total cost me $82.5. Now, if I have to find out the cost of the ink, then what should I do? Let me add all of the other things apart from ink, and then when I add the value of ink, it should actually be equal to 82.5 so that there is no cost gap. So 82.5 should be equal to everything except for the ink. So 10 plus 16 plus 20 into 1.5. So 10 plus 16 plus 20 into 1.5 will give you 30, and plus whatever I can pay for my ink. So can you people let me know how much can I pay for my ink? How much can I pay for my ink? Just solve this equation and let me know, guys. 26.5 you will find out as the difference. So 82.5 minus, if you take the sum of this over here, 82.5 minus this will all total to 56. This is the price that you will be willing to pay for the ink. So the difference that you're getting over here is 26.5, which you will be willing to pay for ink. Now here, are you using 1 gram of ink completely in this particular cartridge? Am I using 1 gram of ink completely? Guys, please be interactive. This session is for you, not for me. I am using only half a gram. So that means I am willing to pay $26.5 for half a gram of ink. That means how much will I be willing to pay for 1 gram? If 26.5 is for half a gram, how much will I be willing to pay for 1 whole gram, 1 complete gram? Yes, it will simply be the double of it. You can simply take 26.5 and divide it with 0.5. So that is going to give you $53. So $53 over here is going to be my final answer. If you people have any doubts in any of the steps, please let me know. I will be happy to clarify. Any step which bothers you? Anything that you would want me to repeat? Are you all with me till here? Everybody? Okay. Let's now move forward towards question number 4. Which two of the following activities should PU company undertake to close the cost gap on the Z1 cartridge? So basically 2 options I have to select out of the 4 that have been given to me. So think carefully, take 2 minutes and let me know both of the choices that you will mark as your answer here. Okay, I am starting to receive your answers. Most of you are saying option B and C. Some of you are saying C and D. So C is common in all of the students' answers. So you people are right in choosing one of your choices as option C. What does option C say? We should negotiate a bulk purchase discount with the casing supplier. So casing is one of my raw materials. If I'm getting a discount over that, my cost will reduce. That will help me close my cost gap. So C has to be one of my answers. Now guys, do you all agree with me that A cannot be my answer? We do not have a choice to increase the selling prices. This is the core concept. You should always remember, most of the times the PM examiner will ask you about target costing, will ask you about closing the gap. And when you read your study material, they've clearly told you target costing will mostly be used in competitive markets. That means there are many number of suppliers who are selling the same thing at similar prices like you. So if you increase the selling price in a market where customers have so many options available at which the prices are cheaper than yours, then they will never come to you and buy your product. So you'll run out of business. Increasing the selling price is never an option to close out the cost gap. Then if you talk about the part B, Part B says we should reduce the amount of ink that we are putting in the cartridge. Now, if you people have a look at the case study told you that PU company is known for the durability of their cartridges and they want to ensure that this cartridge is long lasting. So guys, you people think and let me know, if PU company decides to reduce the amount of ink they are putting in a cartridge, will they be able to ensure the durability and the fact that they want the ink to be long lasting? Will that be possible if I'm supplying lesser ink in the cartridge? No, that would not be possible. So because it's particularly mentioned in the case study, this is also not an option with PU company specifically. What is the last one? It has to be my right answer. It says I should accept a lower profit margin being achieved on the cartridge. If there's nothing else that I can probably do, I cannot increase my selling price. I do not want to reduce the amount of ink. So this is the only option that I have. I will have to accept a lower profit margin on the cartridge if I want to keep up with the quality, with the durability that I have been offering at PU company. So my answers will be option C and D. All right.
If they don't mention like specifically for this, they have mentioned कि मतलब quality के लिए हमें होना चाहिए. But अगर वो specifically mention नहीं होता, then we will choose B, right?
Yes. If it was not specifically mentioned, if it was not their goal to have durability, then we would have probably chosen option B. Okay. Are you all with me till here? Should we head to the last question? Okay, so here is now question number 5 in front of you. Which of the following is not a characteristic of service and therefore a reason why PU company may find it difficult to apply target costing to its after sales service departments? So we were reading one paragraph where they were mentioning that we will be setting up an after sales service department where we are thinking to use target costing. So basically after sales services, these are a service department. So for a service department, we are thinking to use the target costing. So you have to select which is not a feature of services, because of which it can be difficult to use target costing in this particular department. Think of your answers and let me know. I would also need the reason why you people are telling me that the particular option is the right answer. Think, take 2 minutes and let me know. Read the options carefully. I'm starting to receive answers. I would appreciate if somebody would also give me the reason why you people are picking the option that you're picking. Okay, most of you are saying the same option, but do you know the reason? Can anyone tell me why it will be option C? Shubhika says services are not homogeneous. What is the word that we use for services? If they are not homogeneous, then what do we call them? We call the
Variation.
services as heterogeneous, right? The opposite of homogeneous is heterogeneous. That means absolutely right, Gurman. The different services are provided by different people. If I am teaching PM to you, I will teach you in a different manner to maybe somebody else who would also be a PM tutor, because everyone has their different approaches. So if we talk about the remaining options also, the very first one says that intangibility of the service will make it difficult to define. Now, this is definitely a problem which you will face while implementing target costing. But does it fulfill both of your criteria? Your question says you have to pick that option which is both, which is not a characteristic of service, and because of that, it will become difficult to use target costing. So, if I talk about intangibility we have studied is one of the features of services. So, this cannot be my answer. What do we mean by intangibility? I cannot see, I cannot touch a service. The services can be felt. So, whatever services I am receiving, those are intangible in nature. That is one of the features we have studied. Second is production and consumption is also going to occur at the same time. So, for example, if you people go for a haircut is a service. So, the barber is going to cut your hair are going to be cut at the same time. So, consumption and production is happening at the same time. It's not possible to store the services of a barber. Barber will also have to be present. You will also have to be present so that the service can be carried out. So this is also a feature of services, cannot be my answer. Option C says that the quality and consistency of the service is homogeneous. Now every person has a different approach. Some barber will cut your hair in a certain way. Another barber may do it in another manner. So the quality, the consistency can vary from person to person. That is why we say that the nature of services is heterogeneous. So option C has to be my answer. Lastly, if I talk about the last option, the service provided cannot be stored and used at a later date. This is exactly what we were talking about. This is in fact a feature of services. It is a characteristic of services where I say that if the service has to be provided, both the service taker and the service giver has to be present at the same time. So my answer has to be option C. I hope that all 4 of the choices are understood by you all with reasons. If you have any queries, please let me know. All clear till here? Okay, great. So with this, we are through with section A and B related questions that were available to us in this examiner report.